What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome into another episode of Know Your Role. I'm Xavier Catania, and my role is to host this podcast. I'm coming at you live from the KC Sports Company. You can follow us on all the social medias and go check out our website, kcsportscompany.com. You can check out all of the 9 shows that we've got and all the merch we've got. We got hats, shirts, hoodies, and they all look really great. We got some really great designs, so definitely go check that out and help support this movement as we build ourselves up. Um, I want to get right into things today. I'm not going to waste a lot of time because I got a lot of things I want to talk about. And DeAndre Hopkins is officially a free agent. This is something that I've been thinking about for a while. I know a lot of Chiefs fans have been wanting Hopkins to be a Chief for a long time now, and it's something that I think could happen. Um, some of the more likely teams I think he could go to is New England. The Patriots and Bill Belichick have been rumored to be after Hopkins for some years now. So I think there have been reports of him being pursued heavily by New England, so that is a real possibility. I think Buffalo is another good possibility of a place he could go. They have clearly been in the mix for him, along with Kansas City, and they seem to have a strong case for him. Um, I also think a couple of teams that have a lot of cap space that could go after him are the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. Um, both of those teams are kind of looking for another weapon. Uh, Chicago went out and got DJ Moore this year. They still have Darnell Mooney. They have Cole Kmet, but I could see them going after another weapon to help Justin Fields. And I think the Lions could be looking to bring in another big time receiver to go with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. And Jameson Williams is suspended 6 games to start this year. So there's a very strong possibility that the Lions go after Hopkins and they have the cap space to get it done. Now, obviously, we all want to talk about the Chiefs getting him. Um, Oh, and the Ravens are another team that could be in the running for him. I've heard reports about the Ravens. I think that's less likely considering they signed Odell Beckham and they drafted Zay Flowers. So I don't know why they would necessarily be looking to pay another receiver the amount of money that Hopkins would command, considering they've basically just rebuilt their receiving core, and they still have Rashad Bateman, who, if healthy, is a monster as well. And they just paid Lamar Jackson on top of the Odell contract. I don't know if they have the cap space to get it done. Um, okay, so back to Kansas City. Does he make sense for the Chiefs to get? I would say it's a stretch financially. Um, but anything can happen. It could get done because the salary cap seems to be somewhat fake and like seems to be something that teams have a pretty easy time working their way around, especially Brett Veach, who seems to be pretty good at getting around the salary cap. And I think that if Hopkins wants to be with a contender, he also is going to have to necessarily take a pay cut because most of these contenders don't have a ton of cap space. There are some that do, um, but it's not the norm for a real Super Bowl contender to have a lot of cap space, and the Chiefs have virtually none at the moment. Now, if they come to a deal on a new Chris Jones contract, if they do something with Mahomes' contract, if they rework some things with some other guys, maybe they can free up the space. Maybe they can figure out a way to push Hopkins' money into the future and avoid having to use much of this year's cap on it. But there's a way they could get it done, but it is a stretch. It is a thing where Hopkins is going to cost a lot of money, and the Chiefs don't have much. They have less than $1 million in cap space when I checked earlier today on Over the Cap, and so it would take some maneuvering. Now, the on the field impact would be tremendous. I think it would be worth the financial gymnastics they would have to do to make it happen because DeAndre Hopkins is a perennial top 5 receiver. We all know how good he is. I don't need to tell you how good he is. He's a jump ball monster. Um, and he's a big body alpha that the Chiefs don't really have right now. And I think that bringing him in would give Rashee Rice some more time to develop and some more time to make those mistakes that rookies make and learn the offense and not have to be relied on early in the season if an injury happens or, God forbid, someone goes down for whatever reason. Um, now, I think another thing that's being kind of overlooked is the legitimate leadership, veteran presence that he would bring to the wide receiver room with all of the young players that are in the wide receiver room right now. You have a lot of second and third year guys there. You have MVS, who's been around a little bit longer, is only on his second contract though, and obviously Travis Kelsey is a great veteran presence, and the Chiefs have a great locker room, but the wide receiver room specifically just doesn't seem to have that like real veteran guy that can command the respect and help elevate these other guys with him. Um, and honestly, like Hopkins and Kelsey on the same side of the formation is nightmare fuel for defensive coordinators. It's absolutely disgusting. It would be amazing. It would be something that the NFL would I mean, the entire NFL would be shaking their heads if the Chiefs are able to figure this out, and I think Hopkins is, like, a pretty ideal receiver for Mahomes, just in the fact of he will literally go get any ball you ever throw. It doesn't matter where it's at, he will go get it, and I think Mahomes could have a lot of fun, maybe reverting to some of his tendencies from, like, 2018, 2019, um, but it would be so much fun. But I'm gonna stop dreaming now because inevitably, the second that this comes out, Hopkins is gonna be on another team, and none of this is gonna matter. So I'm gonna move on. We're gonna talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's been going on with just OTAs and the off season in general. It's one of these things where it's like the season of guys being ahead of schedule on their injuries and guys being in the best shape of their lives. And um, I know that it's a lot of fun in these moments. Talk about the young guys. We all love the prospect that is just a black box and we don't really know what they are. We love the potential of it over time. And playing in dynasty leagues, I've found out that a lot of people like the potential of what could be more than the proven commodity of what is. And I think the conductor of this most trendy offseason hype train, Justyn Ross, is another case of like a great story that fans want to happen. And he hasn't been on the field to disappoint anyone yet. So he's all potential. And that's something football fans love to talk about. So I want to get into Justyn Ross because I think it's an amazing story. And I think that, yeah, he did at one point have a lot of potential. Um, but I think a lot of people are holding on to what he did his freshman year of college because he was on a national championship team with Trevor Lawrence. He put up 1,000 yards as a freshman on some just insane efficiency. He had, where is it at? He had 1,000 yards on the dot on 20 to 21.7 yards per reception. And he did it on 46 catches, which was the lowest catch amount of his college career, but the highest yardage amount of his career and the most efficient as well. Um, so I think a lot of people saw that year, and that is like what is carrying this hype. It reminds me of the Josh Gordon 2013 season where Josh Gordon was like did so well in a small sample size, very efficient, very just explosive, had some wow plays, and people held on to that all the way up until like basically last year. We were still hearing things about Josh Gordon, and that was 9 years removed from his great season. And I think sometimes when these guys are away, the old saying like the heart grows fonder when you're away from someone. Like it seems to be the case with some of these guys. And so Justyn Ross had that great season. He came back his sophomore year, had a less stellar year where he had 66 catches this time, so 20 more catches than the year before, but about 140 less yards, and a massive drop in efficiency to 13.1 yards per reception, which makes sense for his athleticism because he ran a 4.64 40 at his pro day, which is not clocked with laser stopwatches. So a lot of times, most services will add about 0.05 onto that. So with a 4.69 40 estimated of what he would have ran at the combine, that was ninth percentile among receivers. His burst score is seventh percentile. So he's like bottoming out in a lot of these athleticism areas, and so that would make sense for a guy whose yards per reception would drop. You would not expect someone with that little speed to be able to maintain a 21 yard per reception number. Um, I just think like the projections for him to be starting in three wide receiver sets with the Chiefs this year are kind of getting outrageous to me. And it's just these gym shorts workouts just don't tell us anything, man. Like we got to see these guys in pads. We have to see these guys do it against NFL talent because I don't like guys can make one-handed catches and stuff all they want and run crisp routes and stuff all they want against air. But you put an NFL corner out there and then I want to see what they can actually do because I know that this hype is stemming from the workouts and then Andy Reid making mention of Justyn Ross, and we all know that Andy Reid's not going to say a bad word about anyone. So it doesn't surprise me that Reid brought up Justyn Ross when asked about John Ross. It doesn't seem super significant to me that he would think about Justyn Ross when someone mentioned John Ross, just because they have the same last name and they're both guys who are on the roster bubble and they're both competing for basically the same spot on the team, which would be the fifth, sixth receiver and possibly practice squad. Like that's what these guys are shooting for. So it doesn't really surprise me that a reporter brought up John Ross and Andy Reid immediately thought to mention the other Ross on the team. He clearly has those guys in his head as similar area in the team and the name similarity. So I don't take much from what Andy Reid said. Now, I will say that Justyn Ross, he broke out at 18. He had another year of decent production his sophomore year where he had the 850 so yard, 865. Um, in 2020, during the spring game, he got hit and thought he had a stinger. Basically realized that he had a rare spinal condition. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to try to act like I understand what was going on there. Basically, he had surgery and he returned to Clemson for his senior year. And in his senior year, he played in only 10 games. He had 47 catches, which was one more catch than his freshman year, but he had right around half the yardage that he had in his freshman year. He only had 524. His efficiency had basically been cut in half down to 11 yards per reception, and he never eclipsed a 20% target share in college. And yes, he was on a team with some other great players, T. Higgins, to name one, Travis Etienne. Um, there were other receivers around him, but really, I just don't see why people think he was an insanely good prospect. It's got to be because he put up some decent numbers in the college football playoff his freshman year, and people just have that stuck in their mind, and that's a thing that I see happening a lot with the the Clemson players, the Bama players, LSU guys, Ohio State guys. This happens all the time. And look, if you get a guy from one of those big football powerhouses, you better be getting them in the rounds 1 through 3. Because if scouts like them, they're getting pushed up into rounds 1 through 3. They will not go later than that because every scout gets their eye on them. Everyone boosts them up because of level of competition, not only within their own roster to even be on the field, but also the level of competition around them when you're playing in the SEC against these big time corners that are going to the NFL and these safeties that are going to be in the NFL. Uh, it makes a big impact on the perception of these guys. And I think where fans sometimes go wrong is we see the Clemson or Alabama helmet or the LSU helmet, and we think, oh, this guy is going to be awesome. He came out of Bama, he was on the field, he made plays for them, whatever. But the problem is when you get those guys going in the later round, the mid to late rounds, and going undrafted, which is what Justyn Ross is undrafted. And when you have these guys that come out of these big schools and go undrafted, that is a huge red flag. Because if the NFL really thought that they could be a guy that's like what people are making Justyn Ross out to be, if they really thought he could be that, he wouldn't have fallen that far. He would have been drafted somewhere. And a lot of times you see these guys from these bigger schools go flame out when they're drafted that low. And then what you really want to be getting at that point in the draft is you want to be getting your small school linemen, and a lot of your smaller school guys are coming out of the later parts of the draft. You're getting your running backs back there. You're getting a lot of linebackers back there and stuff like that. And a lot of small school guys. The early rounds are where the big school guys should be at because, like I said, they're picked through by everyone. And for all those reasons, I'm not really in on Justyn Ross. I think that he'd be a fine practice squad guy, maybe an emergency fifth or sixth receiver if there are injuries or things like that happen throughout the season. I think he'll be really lucky if he makes the roster because I think this roster is pretty stacked, especially if DeAndre Hopkins comes in. And I just don't really see where Justyn Ross fits into it. He doesn't really have the athleticism. He doesn't have the production profile. And he also has some major injury concerns after coming off a spinal injury and then missing the entire year last year with a foot injury. Um, I'm not going to hold my breath for him. And this is like the quintessential type of receiver that it comes with so many red flags that it just doesn't really seem worth it to me to get overly hyped about him. But I don't blame you if you are. I see the one-handed catches. I see the highlight reel. I see what people think about when they see this guy. I'm just telling you, don't get out over your skis on it. Be realistic because that's what this show is about, is being realistic. So with that, we're going to get into a break here, and then I'm going to come back with sticking with the theme of being realistic. We're going to talk about some Patrick Mahomes contract stuff. It should be fun.
What up, KC? On the heels of yet another Kansas City Super Bowl victory, we have an awesome opportunity for you to broadcast your business to the local Kansas City market. We've created something called Kansas City Sports Company, which is a sports media hub for multiple live shows, all of which cover all the local Kansas City teams. Now, we have 30-second ad spots, 60-second ad spots, we have event sponsorships, studio sponsorships, show sponsorships, and much, much more. This is a great opportunity for you to start early with us and broadcast your business to a very dedicated, very enthusiastic Kansas City audience. Contact me or hit the Contact Us link on our website to learn more about this opportunity.
Welcome back to Know Your Role. We're going to start this second half of this show off with the man that we all love to hate, Mike Florio, who is at it again. He's literally the biggest crybaby in all of the media, and he's continuing to throw a tantrum about the Patrick Mahomes contract, which he has been since Mahomes signed the contract. And so, in honor of Florio, we're going to kick off a brand new segment today called Quit You Crying. Now, this segment was supposed to be saved for the season when people are crying about the refs blowing calls or the refs not calling things or people blowing games or blaming games on this or that or coaching decision or a player deciding uh, to make the wrong play or an injury or whatever. So I was going to save it for that, but I'll leave it to Mike Florio to be the biggest crybaby and make me unveil this segment early. So we're going to get into this article that was posted to Pro Football Talk, written by Mike Florio on May 27th, and it's called Patrick Mahomes is trying to strike the balance between too much and not enough, which I believe most humans are trying to strike that balance in all aspects of life, but I digress. The headline that came from Patrick Mahomes' recent comments regarding his contract, which is already outdated less than 40 months after it was finalized, focused on his decision to prioritize legacy over money. The full contents were far more nuanced. Mahomes is trying to strike the right balance between taking too much and not being paid enough. If he goes too far one way, it becomes harder for him to chase Tom Brady's 7 championships. If Mahomes goes too far the other way, Mahomes comes off as a sucker, someone who's being taken advantage of by a team and a sport that benefits far more financially from his presence in the league than he does. Okay, I got to jump in here because I don't I don't really agree with the premise that the NFL and the league as a whole benefits more from Patrick Mahomes being in it than Patrick does. He's framing this like Mahomes isn't being paid to play and he's just making these owners rich with nothing in return. And I just don't believe that, because if you carve out success in the NFL, you will be paid handsomely for that. You will also have insane opportunities for endorsement deals, opportunities that would not be afforded to you if you were not an NFL quarterback. There are, I think Patrick Mahomes made $20 million in endorsements last year. Um, and that's on top of the money he made from football. That is not even really including the future opportunities he will have. The man's already had a Hall of Fame career. What opportunities arise for Hall of Famers in the future that other people don't get? I think of like Deion Sanders working his way up these coaching ranks, and like I just don't think that a lot of opportunities that NFL players get would be afforded to them in other ways. So I don't agree with the premise that the NFL is benefiting substantially more from Mahomes playing than Mahomes is benefiting from his own playing career. It just seems insane to me that this guy comes into the league and is making, if you include the endorsement deals, somewhere around 65 to 70 million dollars every single year, and that number's only going up, and the numbers in the contract are only going up. And the fact that he signed for 500 million guaranteed over 10 years uh, is not fully guaranteed, but the contract details are weird, but it effectively came out to being like a 12-year contract for like 470 some million with some incentives in there, and like we're just going to say 500 million for the sake of saying less words, okay? But it just seems crazy to me that you could say Mahomes is not benefiting from his career. It That seems nuts. Are the Chiefs benefiting? Yeah. Is the NFL benefiting? Yeah. But would those entities be around without Patrick Mahomes? Absolutely they would. So I I don't agree with that. But back to the article. So when Mahomes signed his current 12-year deal, he pushed the bar for the highest paid player in league history by a whopping 10 million per year. So obviously money was an issue then. Now just 3 years later, he has fallen 7 million per year behind current highest paid player Lamar Jackson. How is money not an issue now? Well, I don't know. This Have you been paying attention to NFL at all? This is how it works with contracts. They Someone signs a contract and they're the highest paid player. And then shortly after that, someone else will sign a contract and they're the highest paid player. And that just goes in perpetu- per- perpetuity. Jeez, that was horrible. In perpetuity until the contracts that were signed a few years before seem to be deals compared to the contracts in the future. And now you just said that Mahomes advanced the market by 10 million per year when he signed his contract. So he has done his duty in elevating these quarterback contracts to where they are now. Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and soon to be Joe Burrow are also doing their duty, and they're continuing to elevate those contracts. And that's what happens with these. And that's what was known when Mahomes signed his contract, was that he was doing it to be a team friendly deal and to be able to be reworked in the future. And it's just crazy to me that someone would have such an issue with it, and what a guy does financially and what a guy cares about in his career. It just seems wild to me. Um, so, yeah, money's not the issue. Winning championships is the issue. Did we forget that everyone was just talking about how Mahomes had the highest percentage of cap taken up by a quarterback to win the Super Bowl. And this is why, because he signed a contract that he knew would advance the market but also not put his team in a bad spot. That's why this is possible. And I think immortality is worth a lot more than the money, because the money will come. The immortality is what you chase. The legend is what you chase. The greatest of all time title is what you chase. So, back to the article. It's already glaring to see the best player in the league so underpaid relative to lesser quarterbacks, especially when considering the cash flow over the first 3 years of the major quarterback deals. Mahomes already has plummeted to 11th, and he'll keep falling as more quarterbacks keep getting paid. And yes, Mahomes should not be a hog. If he pushes for 60 million or 70 million per year, which he absolutely deserves, I agree. The Chiefs wouldn't have enough quality veterans. The rookie wage scale makes it very easy to have more than enough quality young players if the team drafts and develops well. Before any player takes less in order to help the team, the player should be certain that the money left behind will be fully invested in always putting the best players on the field. With 100% of the cap used every year and cash over cap when necessary to add missing pieces or two, like a DeAndre Hopkins, who we've already been talking about, and we've already been saying that the Chiefs can make it happen. But he's Florio's saying here, the owners never take less, The coaches never take less. The salary cap creates an environment in which fans and media pressure players to take less, even when they shouldn't. And I, okay, so there's a little bit here, but Florio's making the case that if you're giving up some of your money, the team should have to guarantee that they're using that money in ways that can benefit the team. And I saw a clip of him talking to Chris Sims about this, and I agree with him absolutely. And I think New England did do Tom Brady a little bit dirty there at the end, but they weren't getting him any weapons and they were hogging the cap and they would never pay anyone. And I understand the logic there. But that is not the case with the Chiefs. The Chiefs have, as we discussed earlier, less than $1 million in cap space. And people act like it's a crisis because of that. But no, they are using that money. He's saying the owners never take less. Well, the owners are of the Chiefs, the Hunts, are spending the money. They're right up against that cap limit. So it's not like the money that Mahomes could be getting is going straight to Clark Hunt, which is the case he made in the video I saw with Chris Sims. That is not what's happening. He can think that's what's happening, but that's not what's happening when you actually look at where the Chiefs rank in cap space every single year. They never have cap space. And the fans know this because we always want these big name players, and then we're always looking at the cap and being like, I don't think they can make it happen, or it's gonna take some gymnastics to get it done. Like I understand the premise and it works with Brady, but it doesn't work with the Mahomes situation. So back to the article. It goes back to another point we've recently made, as evidenced by the manner in which quarterback movement influences the scheduling process. Mahomes and other franchise quarterbacks benefit the league at large. Beyond what the Chiefs can or will pay him, all owners should be feathering Mahomes' nest with more and more cash. He's helping all of them make more money, as is Josh Allen, as is Joe Burrow, and Aaron Rodgers, and Jalen Hurts, and Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert. That's the inescapable conclusion of the league's pivot to boosting broadcast audiences to maximum numbers, even if it means throwing in stadium fans under the bus. Great quarterbacks make it happen all the time, and great quarterbacks should be getting extra money from a league wide fund that properly rewards those players for the value they bring to the production, unrestrained by the guilt trip that the salary cap allows fans and media to place on a player who has a limited number of years to get maximum compensation for his unique skills. Maybe it's an issue for the next CBA. Maybe it will become a focal point for the next executive director of the NFL Players Association. Maybe the quarterbacks of the NFL, recognizing their tremendous value to the game, should break away and form their own group that gets them paid both by their teams and by a league that needs the quarterbacks and able to attract massive TV audiences and the broadcast deals that flow from them. Regardless, the best quarterbacks are currently getting screwed, starting with the best of them all. Okay, so that's the end of the article. I think what Florio's making the case for here is to get rid of the salary cap and actually have the quarterbacks come together for their own union to force the league to pay them directly from the league for what they do for the league. And I don't necessarily have anything against that. I don't really know how the mechanics of that would go down. I'm all for the players getting paid as much as they possibly can. I think they all deserve it. They all put their health and their future longevity on the line for our entertainment and to try and create a legacy and carve out a better life for their families. So I'm all for that. I love like the players are what we love about football. It's not the owners. So I am okay with that part. But the part about the CBA and stuff like that, it's like, okay, well, if that's your major gripe with it, then I don't see why Patrick Mahomes is the problem because all those contracts are restricted by the salary cap and all of them have to be. I mean, in order to fill out a team and get the accolades that allow you to be an even higher paid player is like you have to have a team around you. You don't get to exist independently of the team. Quarterbacks can more than any other player, but they don't get to. So if you want the salary cap to go away, then you have to get that done in the CBA negotiations. You have to have the NFL Players Association be able to pull that off in negotiations with owners. And that doesn't seem to be something that is happening because either the players don't have the leverage for it or the owners just are straight up saying, no, we won't do that. And if that's the case, then maybe the NFLPA needs to figure out how to get the leverage to do that. So it seems like Florio has some real issues with the Chiefs in general, and he seems to hate on the Chiefs quite often. Um, I remember when the Tyreek Hill drama was going on with his son, and all like people were saying he broke his son's arm and all this stuff. Florio was one of the people leading the charge on the Chiefs need to get rid of him. This guy's a criminal. He should be cut. He should never play in the NFL again. And then lo and behold, Tyreek was never charged with anything. He was exonerated in court, and Florio had egg on his face from that. And I think he's had somewhat of a vendetta against the Chiefs. He's hated this Mahomes contract since the day it was signed. And I went back and listened to a bunch of stuff from when it was signed, like Pat McAfee show and Rich Eisen and a bunch of these other guys talked about when it was signed, that it was a great team friendly deal that made Mahomes the highest paid player at the time. And also gave the Chiefs a lot of flexibility to keep the team around him. It was an unprecedented contract when it was signed. It's still unprecedented. No one else has signed a 10-year deal that was an extension that effectively was locking him up for 12 years for nearly $500 million. Like, it's not something that is common, and it's not a rip off of a contract. Is it slightly, yes, less average per year than most of the other quarterbacks around? Like, yeah, he's seventh average per year. Cash flow over the next 3 years is 11th. And I think that's what was intended with this contract. Now, if you look at some of the later years, that cap hit starts to really jump up. There's some years that are looking at 70 million. There's some years that are looking at like 50 plus million. I mean, this contract was set up the way it was for a reason. Mahomes and Veach and Lee Steinberg and all these guys, they all knew what they were doing when they did the contract. And I think that over everything else, Mike Florio should quit counting other people's pockets and just enjoy the fact that he gets to watch the Chiefs be great and Mahomes be great, and he should just sit back and enjoy the show and stop worrying about what the man decides to do with his life financially. So with that, we're gonna get out of here. It was a fun show, and I think I'm starting to actually get a little more comfortable behind the mic. So I hope it's coming through. Um, I want to thank everyone that's been watching and everyone who's been giving me pointers, everyone who has been supporting the Kansas City Sports Company. Make sure to go check out that website, kcsportscompany.com. Get you some merch. The hats are sweet. And I like the shirt designs a lot. Go check me out on Twitter at Know Your Role X. Go check out KC Sports Company on all the social medias. Check out all of our other shows. We're keeping you updated with Royals stuff. We got Chiefs stuff all day. So continue coming back to us, and we're going to continue delivering. So with that, I'm out of here. This is Xavier Catania saying, know your role and shut your mouth.